Hello and welcome to another session on database lessons. On this episode, we are going to look at database objects and then SQL, which is structured query language, the definition and then the categories of the SQL language. So why do we need it and then how do we use it? Let's proceed. The first thing that we're going to look at is database objects. What is a database object? We say objects that make up the database, right? They are just the objects which will make up the database. So we have a view, a table, all these will come together to make the database complete. These are some examples of database objects. We have a table. The table is going to hold records and it is made up of columns and then rows, that is attributes and then records. And then we have a constraint which is enforced on tables for data entry restrictions, and then we have a view, that is the logical subset of a table. We have an index. An index will increase the performance of some queries. We have statistics, which will increase the performance of an index. We have a procedure, which is the pre-compiled database object. We have a function which controls the logical reasoning of the database and always returns a value. We have a user, which we will be seeing in Oracle. We have trigger, and then we have sequence, which is also automatic generation of unique numbers. So these are some examples of database objects. We have so many of them, but at least if you have these objects that I've provided here, this is enough for your studies. The next thing that we want to look at is the SQL itself. Now we'll be seeing SQL on sometimes on the internet, and then some on let's say on PDFs and others. Now the full name for SQL is structured query language. What is the SQL itself? This is the standard language for accessing and manipulating databases. Just like when you go to programming, in programming we have specific languages that you can use. Java for programming, you can use the Visual Studio for programming, but in database we only use the SQL, which is the structured query language. That is the accepted language in database. If you want to manipulate your database, query from the system, we use this particular language. Now this language is made up of some categories that we have to see. So SQL categories. Now we have the first category, which is DDL. DDL, which stands for Data Definition Language. Under DDL, these are some of the languages that or commands that we are going to find under DDL. We have alter, which is for making changes in the database. We have create, which is for establishing something new. We have drop, which is basically for removing or deleting an object. We have backup, which is making a duplicate of a file in a different location. We have restore, that is for bringing back a copy made. And then we have truncate, which is for deleting the entire records in a table and then leaving the table structure. And then we have DML, which is another category. DML, which stands for Data Manipulation Language. Under DML, we have these commands: update, we have insert, select, and then delete. Update is also for making changes, but this deals with records only. We have inserting for populating records into a table. We have select, which is for retrieving records in a table. And then we have delete, which is also for deleting records. There is a difference between the delete and then the truncate, but we will look at that when we start with the practical aspect. And then we have DCL, which is data control language. So we have with grant, and then revoke. With grant will help a user to pass on a privilege that he has obtained from another user to others. And then we have grant, which is for passing on the privilege. We have revoke, which is for taking back a granted privilege. And then we have the last category that we call TCL. TCL, which is transaction control language. Now this includes commit and then rollback. Commit is for saving a transaction, and then rollback is simply for undoing a transaction. So these are the main categories of an SQL statement: DDL, DML, DCL, and then TCL. The next thing that we'll be looking at after this introduction on database objects and the SQL, what we'll be looking at is the Oracle 12c database management system, where we start with the developer, how to create a user, how to create tables, how to insert records, how to drop, how to rename, and so on. I want to thank you for this session too. Please don't forget to subscribe and like my videos. Thank you.